On April 19, 1775, the dispute escalated to open combat. The battles of Lexington and Concord were the first military engagements of the American Revolutionary War. British troops attempting to take colonial weapons fought with colonial militia forces. The shot heard round the world was fired, initiating the war. The British retreated back to Boston, and the siege of Boston begun. Colonial forces encircled the city and confined British troops inside for 11 months. The Second Continental Congress met on May 10th with a more pressing agenda. Delegates from 12 of the 13 American colonies met in Philadelphia to discuss the next steps in response to the rising hostilities. The Congress included several important figures such as John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, and John Hancock. One of the main purposes of the Second Continental Congress was to impose its authority over the colonies' military affairs and to coordinate the war effort against Britain. On June 14, 1775, the Congress established the Continental Army. The next day, George Washington was appointed as Commander-in-Chief. 2 days later, on June 17th, the Battle of Bunker Hill took place near Boston. While technically a British win, the huge losses inflicted on British forces strengthened colonial determination and boosted their morale. On July 6, 1775, the Second Continental Congress released the Declaration of the Causes and Necessity of Taking Up Arms, a declaration prepared by Thomas Jefferson and John Dickinson. The proclamation explained why the colonies had taken up arms against British forces, while also expressing a wish for reconciliation with Britain. Thomas Paine's pamphlet, Common Sense, was released on January 10, 1776. This influential manuscript advocated for American independence from British authority and became a rallying cry for patriots throughout the colonies. Its plain language and strong arguments boosted public support for independence. Throughout the first months of 1776, military conflicts took place in a variety of areas, including New York, New Jersey, and the southern colonies. These battles intensified tensions between American colonists and the British and strengthened the colonists' resolve. Meanwhile, the Second Continental Congress discussed the topic of independence. Delegates debated motions and petitions asking for independence, assessing the dangers and consequences of such a big move. On June 7, 1776, Richard Henry Lee of Virginia presented a resolution to the Continental Congress asserting that these united colonies are, and of right ought to be, free and independent states. In response to Lee's motion, a committee was established to draft a formal Declaration of Independence. The Committee of Five consisted of Thomas Jefferson, Benjamin Franklin, John Adams, Roger Sherman, and Robert Livingston. The Declaration of Independence was written mainly by Thomas Jefferson, with participation from the committee. On July 2, 1776, the Continental Congress voted for independence. 2 days later, on the 4th of July, the Declaration of Independence was officially adopted. Throughout the summer of 1776, both sides fought for control of critical areas and resources. After the Declaration of Independence was signed, British General William Howe started a military attack to conquer New York City and seize control of the strategically important Hudson River Valley. New York was viewed as a valuable prize because of its strategic location and its importance as a major port and economic center. In August 1776, British forces under General Howe landed on Long Island, southeast of Brooklyn, with the goal of seizing Brooklyn Heights, a crucial site overlooking New York Harbor. The British sought to outflank and trap the Continental Army between their lines and the East River. Generals George Washington and Nathanael Greene headed the American defenses on Long Island. On August 27, 1776, British troops launched a coordinated attack against American outposts along the Brooklyn front. Despite tremendous opposition from American forces, the British eventually burst through the American lines and threatened to surround them. Recognizing the danger of being trapped, Washington ordered a withdrawal across the East River to Manhattan. The British won the battle decisively, taking control of New York City. On the night of December 25, 1776, Washington led his army over the cold Delaware River to launch a surprise attack on Hessian forces stationed in Trenton, New Jersey. Hessians were German troops hired by the British to fight in the war. On the morning of December 26, the Hessians, taken off guard by the American attack, were rapidly defeated. The triumphant Battle of Trenton boosted American morale and revived optimism in the Patriot cause as the year came to a conclusion. On September 19 and October 7, 1777, the battles of Saratoga took place in upstate New York. British General John Burgoyne led a campaign southward from Canada with the goal of cutting off New England from the other colonies. However, his advance was halted by American forces, led by General Horatio Gates and General Benedict Arnold, who would eventually betray the American cause in 1780. Although neither side won the first battle at Freeman's Farm, the American forces won decisively at the second battle at Bemis Heights. The American triumph marked a turning point in the war, convincing France to openly support the United States. One of the most significant events of 1778 was the signing of the Treaty of Alliance between the United States and France on February 6. This pact strengthened the two countries' military alliance, with France officially acknowledging the independence of the United States and promising military and naval support against Great Britain. George Washington and the Continental Army camped at Valley Forge, where they stayed for 6 months from December 1777 until June 1778. There, Baron Friedrich von Steuben, a Prussian military officer, trained the American Patriots. Following a tough winter, the Continental Army was now properly trained and reorganized. Meanwhile, British General Sir Henry Clinton, who had succeeded General William Howe, chose to depart Philadelphia and centralize British forces in New York City. General Washington directed his troops to follow the British, with the goal of mounting a surprise attack and engaging them in combat. He sent General Charles Lee and his troops to attack the British rear guard and slow their approach, while the main Continental Army trailed closely behind. On June 28, when the British column marched through Monmouth County, New Jersey, Lee's vanguard unit engaged the British rearguard, led by General Charles Cornwallis. A battle erupted between the advancing Americans and the retreating British, with Lee initially gaining advance. However, miscommunication among Lee's soldiers caused a chaotic retreat, allowing the British to reorganize and mount a counterattack. Lee's retreat threatened to derail the American offensive and endanger the entire operation. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, General Washington personally intervened to rally the withdrawing troops and secure the American lines. He regrouped his forces and sent reinforcements to strengthen the American position. The main battle began with both sides fighting across the battlefield. Despite heavy fighting throughout the day, neither side claimed a decisive victory. As night fell and fatigue set in, both armies withdrew from combat. The British resumed their withdrawal under the cover of darkness, while the Americans held their ground on the battlefield. The Battle of Monmouth concluded in a tactical stalemate, with both sides declaring victory. The Battle of Stono Ferry took place near Charleston in South Carolina on June 20, 1779. British forces, led by Lieutenant Colonel John Maitland, successfully defended Stono Ferry from an American attack. The American soldiers, led by General Benjamin Lincoln, were defeated. A day later, on June 21, Spain declared war on Great Britain, joining up with France and the United States, and creating a formidable alliance against the British. From late September to mid-October 1779, American and French forces attempted to retake Savannah, Georgia, from the British. However, the siege of Savannah was unsuccessful, and the American and French soldiers were defeated. On May 12, 1780, British forces under General Sir Henry Clinton captured Charleston in South Carolina, dealing a critical blow to the American control in the South. Charleston was an important city and harbor, and its collapse resulted in the capture of thousands of American soldiers and vital military supplies. The Battle of Camden resulted in a significant victory for the British. On August 16th, the American force led by General Horatio Gates suffered considerable casualties and was driven off the battlefield. The Battle of Kings Mountain, fought on October 7, 1780, was a significant victory for the American Patriots. Later, in January 1781, the Battle of Cowpens occurred, resulting in a decisive American triumph in South Carolina. Following the Battle of Cowpens, British soldiers led by General Cornwallis continued their march north to Virginia. The Battle of Yorktown marked the final combat of the American Revolutionary War. It was fought between September 28 and October 19, 1781. American and French forces, led by Generals Washington and Rochambeau, besieged the British Army under General Cornwallis in Yorktown, Virginia. After weeks of bombardment, the the British surrendered on October 19th, thereby ending hostilities and ensuring American independence. After the Battle of Yorktown, peace talks between British and American delegates began in Paris. The negotiations sought to establish the terms of peace and put an end to the fighting. Throughout 1782, peace talks between American and British diplomats continued. On April 12, 1782, the British Parliament accepted the peace accords reached in Paris. This decision showed the British government's desire to halt hostilities and accept the United States' independence. The Treaty of Paris was signed on September 3, 1783, and it officially concluded the American Revolutionary War. The treaty recognized the United States' independence and established the new nation's boundaries, which stretched from the Atlantic Ocean to the Mississippi River. Following the American Revolutionary War, the newly independent United States faced the issue of creating functional government structures. The Articles of Confederation, adopted in 1777 and ratified by all 13 states by 1781, established the first national constitution. However, the Articles proved ineffective as they lacked the authority to charge taxes, regulate commerce, or execute laws. Recognizing the Articles' flaws, political leaders called a constitutional convention in 1787 to design a new constitution. The resulting United States Constitution was passed in 1788, establishing a stronger federal government. In 1789, state-appointed electors assembled to vote, and George Washington was overwhelmingly elected as the first president of the United States. His leadership throughout the Revolutionary War and reputation as a unifying figure helped him win a unanimous election. On April 30, 1789, Washington was inaugurated in New York City after receiving approval from Congress. He chose to limit his presidency to 2 terms, creating an example for future presidents. By being committed to respecting the Constitution and serving the country with integrity, Washington laid the groundwork for modern American governance.